Hi everyone, I'm Wayne Sutton. I'm the community manager at Observable. Just want to say thank you all for being here. Thanks for joining us for our May Observable Community Meetup. And just want to say first, hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're taking care of yourselves during this time, during the pandemic, and a lot of things happening in the world. So first and foremost, just want to say hi, hello humans. Hope you all are doing well. We mean that. And before we get started, before we jump into things, just want to say that we have that's me. We have a community code of conduct that we all agreed to by registering for this event, and you can read that on our website, Observable. And the agenda for today it is going to bring up Melody, our founding CEO, in a few minutes, and she's going to say a couple words about Observable. And we also have members of the Observable team in the chat. Ajna from the DevRel team, Vishnu, one of our engineers. And so feel free to say hi to them in the chat, say hi to each other. I think Francis is here on the Observable team. So please introduce yourselves in the chat as well. But I'm really excited about today's meetup, and also excited about our speakers, David and Paula. But before we get to them, I want to invite, let me stop sharing the screen, and invite Melody to say a couple words.
Hi, everyone. Hello from my home. I hope you're all safe and well. Really echo Wayne's words that we appreciate you being here and really looking forward to hearing from the speakers today. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what's coming up for Observable. We as a team, we're a growing team. I think we're now, have grown our DevRel team and our design team and our development team. And we are here to listen to what you have to say and to help you in any way that we can. We really believe in the power of Observable as a platform to help you explore and analyze data and then bring the power of visualization to that understanding. And as you're doing that, we all have this tremendous opportunity to share what we know on the platform. So we can share it out to the world. Someone else could find a notebook that you wrote, come to the platform, fork it, tinker with the data, and make it their own. And there's so much power in that communication. What David and Paula are going to share with us today is how Observable has helped them in their work and what they've shared with the world. And I'm incredibly inspired by what I see every day from all of you and what you're creating with Observable. So the notebook is there for you. It's there to support your work. You can import, you can see the code, you can see the data, you have that interactivity of the notebook so that you get that real-time feedback. And as you're doing that, you can collaborate with others. And we're really excited about some of the features that we're going to be launching in the future to help you as content creators connect with other members of the community. So I mentioned we're a growing team. We use Observable every single day in our work for our tech design documents, for dashboards around how we understand what's happening on Observable, for our company-related documents. And so we really understand that there is friction in the platform right now. And it's our job and our intent to make that easier for you. So in the coming months, I'm really excited about some of the features that we're going to be bringing out to you. We just launched the video channel. If you haven't seen it on YouTube, huge thanks to Anjana, our developer advocate, and the entire developer relations team, Wayne and Cassandra. Love to get your feedback on those videos. We're also working on new tutorial content. So expect to see more videos and notebooks on cool things that you can do with Observable. So definitely check it out. We have new videos coming out, pretty regularly. We're trying to make sure we're generating that content. We also have features to help you discover new content. So again, we've heard your feedback that sometimes it's hard to search and hard to find content. And so we're going to be working on features to address that. We're also excited to help you bring more of your content that you create on Observable out into the world. And that means reducing the friction of being able to create an Observable and then being able to understand how you can get that out to members of your community or to the world at large. There's a real opportunity in Observable to learn from everything that we're created. And as a company, we're very, very committed to that. We learn from you every day in terms of the examples that you're creating and how you're using the platform. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a user of Observable. As a team, we're here to listen to you. We're here to respond to your feedback. We're inspired by you, and we look forward to hearing your feedback today, tomorrow, and well into the future. So thank you, and thank you so much to our speakers today who are presenting their work. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, and I'll be on the chat in case there are any questions that come up.
Thanks, Melody. It's always great to hear from Melody, and I appreciate your words. Before we introduce our speakers, I want to say, remind everyone to use the ask a question feature in Crowdcast for our speakers. And also after our next session, we're going to have a time for some community chat Q&A. So hang tight for that as well. Again, thanks, Melody, for joining us, and see you in the chat. Next, I want to introduce David Eads and Paula Friedrich. David is the design and delivery editor at Chicago Reporter, and Paula is the interactive producer at WBEZ. I said it totally wrong. WBEZ, Chicago's public media station. So next, I want to invite David and Paula to the livecast. 1 second while I bring them up. Hi, David, Paula.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen here. Is that working? Looks like it's working. Cool. So I'm David. I'm the design and delivery editor at the Chicago Reporter. It's an almost 50-year-old organization that covers race, poverty, class here in Chicago.
And I'm Paula Friedrich, and I'm an interactive producer at WBEZ. We're Chicago's public media station. So we've got a robust radio presence, but we also do a lot of online work.
And our slides are available at this link that you can see here. So I'm just going to jump right in. Thank you, everybody, for having us. So back in mid-March, a source tipped me off to a hidden data feed that was being published by the state of Illinois, by the state of Illinois Public Health Department. Actually, at the time, we didn't even know who exactly was publishing it, with counts of deaths and confirmed cases of COVID-19. The very next day, our friends at WBEZ called us and were talking about possibility for just making sure that we weren't duplicating effort in tracking some of this data that was out there. And since then, we've been following Illinois' COVID-19 data on a daily basis through embedded data-driven graphics. And by data-driven, we're really talking about something broad. We'll see that in a second here. And so our most recent project out of this effort, there's a collection, you can take a look at that, but our most recent project out of this effort takes apart the reopening plan that was presented by the governor a couple weeks ago. We sort of take it apart, we model it, and so I wanted Paula to talk a little bit about some of the strategic design choices that went into sort of how we thought about that and sort of worked backwards towards the technology that would support it.
Yeah, so I'll start here with a little bit to lay the groundwork, what the state had released. And so these are just screenshots of a PDF where they kind of laid out the 5-phase plan for reopening. And it kind of roughly outlined what was going to be next for the state. And in the next slide, you can see sort of what the state had released in terms of, if you can go ahead to the next slide. Can I do that?
No.
Okay. So this is sort of a piece of how they presented their data on zip code level case counts and deaths. So when we were looking at this, we kind of immediately saw that we could provide a service by doing some reporting to clarify the guidelines of what was going to be open, and also to add context to case count data and then present that in a user-friendly way. So both of, we ended up creating. The older project is the zip code map, which kind of allows you to hone in on different areas and take a look at what's going on in that specific area. But both of the projects kind of had two main goals. And the first is to really help our audience locate themselves in the places they care about. That felt really critical to us because, you know, you want to see what's going on around you. And these stories right now, they're intensely local in that way. And the opening regions, for example, the regions are pretty large. You might be able to figure out roughly where your address fits just by looking at it, but you might be curious about your grandma's house or Six Flags or something else that you want to see what phase that might be in and what the rules look like there. So these are just some design iterations we went through to get the locator map right here. We tried a few different variations, denoting different phases, and the one on the bottom right is pretty much where we landed in the end. And for the zip code map, again, it was trying to clarify what's going on in your area and helping users locate themselves. And David can speak a little bit to the technical piece of that. Of the zip code map.
Yeah. So sorry, the slide advancing is a little tricky. So yeah. So one thing that I mean, you saw earlier. You saw the statewide map of the zip codes. It just shows you the whole state. And one of the things that we, felt pretty strongly about is that these tools should be very low friction. And when people were coming to us, we were getting people from some of our previous work via tools like Intercom or Harken. We're saying, hey, we want to see the zip codes. And what we started to suspect is that people didn't really necessarily want to see the whole state. They really wanted to see where they lived. And so this is a trick that I think is really important that we used, which is just simply we sort of weaponize the surveillance state for news, the passive surveillance state, and use your IP address to figure out what zip code you're in. And so, now you don't have to do, it just saves you a click and saves you an interaction and gets you the information we think that you need. And you'll see later, but the audience has responded to this well. So I think, I think we're delivering something that people want.
Yeah, and the second piece of our goals going into a lot of this work has been to just clarify and to use our power as journalists and reporters to get into the nuance and details of what's important here. So this is kind of what we did for the videos. I forgot to share the video with you, but it's a couple of design iterations we went through, and you can see in the notebook actually where we ended up. But you can see we started out a little bit text heavy, and then going forward, we added some subheadings and we color coded what was open and what was not open. And we were really trying to make something that was responsive, that worked on a phone, and that helped you kind of skim through this and figure out how it's going to apply to your life. And the other thing that we were really focused on, and really where we can bring our heft as reporters, is the fact that these guidelines are changing. I mean, just this week, the state released more industry-specific guidelines, and so we wanted to create something that would allow for nuance in those guidelines. So within sort of the table, there's an ability to be more specific about the details of what open might look like. And so that was sort of the thought process, and those are the goals that kind of run through all of the embeds that we've been doing in our work together. The goal is really to give our audience a way to make sense of the information and to apply it to their lives. And Observable has been a huge help in that. So that's kind of like why we did this and our thought process going into it, and we can dig into some of the more technical details.
So yeah, so these are powered by Observable notebooks. These are straight up Observable notebook embeds that lets us share it very broadly and gives us a pretty low barrier to entry. Paula had never used Observable before March 20th or whenever we started doing this. I had some experience, but really only going back to the end of last year. One of the questions that we had was how do we include these things that are important for production-ready embeds or production-ready graphics for a major news publication? We need to have, for our mission, we need to have translation at the Chicago Reporter, and any news outlet or major publication is going to need analytics. Maybe integration with existing styles. In our case, we also needed IP-based geolocation, and there was certainly some speed bumps, but at the end of the day, it's just JavaScript, and we were able to do everything that we needed to, and that really actually kind of blew me away, particularly with the analytics that we were able to do that successfully. And these have been really successful. It's not all about the clicks, but we've seen a pretty massive audience for this. So you can see this is as of a couple days ago, and obviously Google Analytics, what does it mean? But a lot of people have showed up for this, hundreds of thousands. And one of the things that we've seen, and I think this is a very cool thing to see, is again, like, what does session duration mean? Who knows? But in relative terms, it seems like we're engaging people more deeply as we refine these tools, as we come up with better ideas, like this restore plan that we created. And unlike most news, we see this very steady sort of traffic to these things, which isn't something that often happens, right? Like in a news environment, even your own news habits, right? Like you see something on Facebook, and then the next day you've forgotten about it. People are coming back to this work and checking it again, and or finding it anew. And the other thing that's been really important for us is that we also see, we see people using it. So on the right here it's kind of hard to tell, but this is just a note that was put on a local Facebook group. Zip code 60639 in Belmont-Cragen has the highest COVID-19 infected in all of Illinois. And the rate is highest among Latinos, which is something that we show in the data. And then there's, more than 75 comments now. There's this really robust conversation that then happens around this data, and that's something that's very important, I think, for the missions of both public radio and the Chicago Reporter. Paula, how has it been for WBEZ?
Yeah, it's definitely been one of the most successful pieces of COVID coverage that we've produced at WBEZ as well. And I would also add that we've gotten just some really nice notes and emails from people who wanted to take the time to say that this has been useful and that they've been able to make more sense of what's going on right now thanks to some of these tools. And so that feels important as well.
So just to say a little bit about our audience, because I think this is I always find it interesting, and I know when I speak about this stuff, it can be kind of interesting. So 80% of our audience is on mobile. And even more desktop users are using the Restore Illinois Plan tool, which sort of, it sort of makes sense to me, I think, in some ways. Still, even with that larger influx of desktop users, we're about 80% tablet or phone. It's more iOS than Android. Most of the vast majority of our audience comes from Illinois, and about 40% comes from Chicago. So we really feel like we're hitting that local nerve. Like this is what we would hope to see. And then we've made some kind of choices and design choices. So we've seen very high levels of interaction with the zip code map. But some of those patterns have helped us in terms of even seeing what our potential for sort of redesign or improvements we can make, precisely because we'll see, people aren't clicking on the selector, they're clicking around the map. Well, let's move the selector down then. If the primary navigation that people are choosing is the map-based navigation, let's lean into that. And again, it's pretty remarkable that we can sort of, that we can instrument all of this in Observable. I'm going to go through a couple kind of just behind the scenes things, and then we'll be done with this part. So we're using Mapbox to handle mapping and the auto completion for geocoding where we need that. We're using D3 a lot. Almost all the the geo kind of calculations, like is this latitude and longitude in this region or in another region. We're doing that all in the client using Turf.js, which has been really cool. I'd never used it before, and it's just worked amazing. And then we're using these somewhat shady services for IP-based geolocation. Little bit about the back end. What we did is just set up a CDN in front of the state's own hidden data feeds. Like we're just mirroring their entire site, and then we just use Lambda at Edge to tweak the headers to our liking. I have a gist for that, and so it was a reverse proxy in about 20 minutes, which was pretty cool. We're using GitHub Actions to coordinate things. We're using a service I really like called Geocode.io, Geocode.io. Anyway, it's kind of a mom and pop shop, and they've got a really, really accurate geocoder, and so we use that to enhance our data and to get a little more data about some of these zip codes. And we're using a tool created by the U.S. Census Bureau that lets you access census data using Node.js and JavaScript called City SDK. What we've been doing is actually writing prototypes of those scripts in Observable, and then we turn them into Node scripts. So just to kind of be able to very quickly experiment, and then we turn that into something in a more static kind of build process. You can read a little more about this here. The last thing I'll just mention is that we're big fans of Google Sheets. We use Google Sheets a lot, and we're going to be using Google Sheets. We're using Google Sheets for the Restore Illinois plan. However, for that kind of complex data modeling problem, you run into problems very quickly, as I'm sure a lot of y'all nerds know and can anticipate. And so we're switching that over to Airtable this week to have just a little more control over how we're modeling that data and a little more structure to that. But being able to sort of freeform in Google Sheets is pretty great. Paula and I both have a message to close out the presentation.
Yeah, this kind of work, this kind of coverage, it's intensely local. I mean, the guidelines and data vary from city to city. Like, for example, Chicago has stricter reopening guidelines than the state, and it takes a lot of work to keep track of everything. And we've been really lucky to be able to share resources between WBEZ and the Chicago Reporter, and there are a lot of people besides us who put time into this. So if you have the means and value this kind of work, we'd encourage you to donate to local news, wherever that means for you.
And then I would just say with this kind of a crowd, that's also technical help, and we've gotten a lot of it from the Observable community already. Stephanie Turk, Ben Welsh, Aaron Williams. I mean, really, just really felt well supported by this community. So there's lots of ways to give, and we need it. We're very small and really trying to get important information in people's hands. So that's all we have in terms of slides.
Awesome. Just want to say thanks, David and Paula. Appreciate the slides and appreciate all the work you two are doing and to help bring transparency to the community there. So I have a couple of questions I just want to dive into right quick. But before I get to that, I want to jump to one question from the question and answers that the community has presented. and it's actually one of my questions. What kind of bugs or problems did you face with embedding observable notebooks into your news sites, if any?
So one bug that's
It's okay. It's okay to be honest. Be honest with us. Let us know. That's your experience today.
Yeah, there's been this bug with Mapbox trying to know its own width that's really thrown me for a loop. So if there's any Mapbox people in the house, please give a shout. It's not just, it doesn't just affect embeds, but it can affect embeds particularly. Otherwise, actually pretty good.
Yeah, I will say from a design perspective, it's been kind of good. It's just something to think about is that when we're embedding across multiple sites, it'll inherit font styles. And so that it ends up looking different across different sites. And so there's a little bit of just debugging that goes into that. But it's not too terrible.
And it's a tricky one because you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
With that one, because if we have a strong opinion, then that could be bad. If you've got a black background on your site and, a pink font, like it's going to look really weird, right? But like if we don't have a strong opinion, then it's also going to look weird. So that's a tough one.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, good feedback, though. Good feedback. Thank you. Thanks for the question also. That question, credit. That question came from Alex. Thanks, Alex, for the question. All right. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, and one question I just wanted to ask, for both of you, like, how are you all doing during the pandemic? Like, I know, from my perspective, like watching the news and being, reading all the data. So, how are you two doing covering the pandemic?
I think I've been doing, I feel like as well as we can in this situation. It definitely helps to have something like this to take up your time and to feel like you're helping inform some people. So that's definitely helpful for me.
Yeah, in a weird way, being able to shut out some of the noise that's happening at a national level or something like that and just really focus on, well, we can serve this place.
Yeah. Finding what you can do and finding what you can change. So that sounds, agree with that. Were there any convincing of your team to use Observable? Was it like, hey, what's this? Or why are you using this? Or, what was that like?
A little bit, I think. But I work at we're still a relatively small news organization. And so I'm one of the few people sort of with technical skills on staff. And so we're able to kind of try things out, I think easier maybe than in a larger organization. So we're lucky in that way.
Yeah, and we'd already committed to Observable earlier in the year as a primary platform for this. And we were lucky we did because just the timing worked out pretty well that we'd already worked out some of the kinks with embedding and some of that stuff.
Awesome. Did other journalists, other colleagues reach out and say, oh, how do you create the graphics? Or how do you do that? How do you, with the data? Have you published and so the traffic and everything?
Yeah, we've been getting a good amount of feedback like that, and we're really hoping that people can take and adopt this, adopt the code. Every place is going to be its own special snowflake. Like our code is, even just the way that we model the reopening plan is going to be different in different places. But it's something that we want and are seeing some, are seeing it being used. Also, a lot of academic interest in the data itself. I think we've really set ourselves up as sort of a definitive source for this data and understanding what it means. I think a huge part of what WBEZ has been doing is just, going out and clarifying these fine details, but that actually really matter to people's lives, right? Like, is the DMV going to be open? Well, it's an agency. Agencies, have their own reopening schedule. Well, did we know that before? Well, now we do, and we can tell people that. And so that's important, I think.
Nice. So another question from Ramona. What was the process of initially developing the zip code visualization? Did you try anything that you didn't use? How many iterations did you go through?
Paula went through a lot of iterations.
mean, I feel like we went through iterations together. I mean, do you want to speak about, you worked mostly on the map. I worked on the stuff under the map. I don't know if you want to talk about the map first. I can talk
I think, we pretty much started bouncing it around. I mean, I've seen from previous jobs that the auto location of various types just greatly increases engagement. I mean, first off, the interactivity, people don't interact with your stuff online very much. Like it takes a lot to get somebody to click a button or to execute a search. And so, you really need to tell the story or get them some kind of useful information without expecting them to do that. And so, I'd done a project at NPR where we did an A/B test and we put an auto-locating map in the middle of the story for one group of people and then just a map of the US for the other group of the people. And the people who saw the auto-locating map actually were more likely to read to the end of the story. And so, I think that was kind of the key insight. And then the user experience stuff is where I start to really struggle. And I think Paul and I started to bounce around. I think that initial idea kind of came from that experience, but then it was like, well, if we take that insight, what do we do with it?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Another question from the chat, which is I'm curious, is like, what was the operating cost of the project? You had Mapbox, you had AWS. Mike asked that in the chat. So, what was the budget, or did you just like, we need this and we're gonna go for it, figure it out later?
So shout out to Mapbox for the generous support. We've spent maybe $9,000 in Mapbox, but they've discounted it for us significantly. AWS, that reverse proxy, costs a couple bucks a month. That's our only other, and we write static files to S3. So the backend kind of operating costs are on the order of dollars a month.
Paul, anything on your end?
That covers it.
Awesome. Yeah. How do you feel about the work you all done? Like save lives, change user behavior. Like, how do both of you feel about this work you've done and the impact you had in the community? Have you reflected on that?
Big question.
That's a big question. I mean, I don't want to be too self-congratulatory about it. I think we're providing an information service. We're not frontline workers. We're not even stocking the grocery store shelves. I do think that being able to do something that is compellingly designed and engaging, if we can reach people at this very, at this wide scale, like maybe that convinces, if 1% of our audience decides, I'm going to stay home today because they looked at this, like they just from a probability standpoint, I think that can make a difference. I think we're setting ourselves up to create accountability in the future as we're tracking the claims that the state is making about how things are going to go and how people are going to be treated, and by tracking that now, we can test it later and we can say, are they doing right by prisoners? We have a huge problem in this state of it's a human rights disaster, I would say, that of COVID infections in the prisons and jails. So, I think being able to kind of keep an eye on that stuff. I'm going to put Paula on the spot here. When we did the zip code map initially, we had this footnote at the bottom, and it said some zip codes might have prisons in them, and the numbers might be wrong. And when we redesigned it, we sort of took that footnote content and put it right next to the numbers that you see for your place. And it's not perfect. There's a lot, I think, that we could do better. Even saying like, oh, well, you're in this zip code, this is where Stateville prison is. But still, it's this reminder. And now, thousands of people every day are being reminded that there's a disaster with this disease among incarcerated people, who might have gone to jail, for being at the wrong place at the wrong time, and now they're condemned to have a life-threatening sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paula?
Sorry, that was heavy.
No, it's
No,
we're really heavy times.
Yeah, no, I would echo everything that David said, and I think it's also been the way that David has really thought about developing these tools is to make them sort of these living products that we improve over time. And so some of bringing that information up came out of just listening and seeing what people were saying and asking, and so it's nice to be able to respond to that as well.
Yeah, awesome. So switching a little bit, a couple questions. You mentioned this earlier, David, that it was JavaScript and so it wasn't like a big learning curve for you. But so how do you feel like other skills that you have developed or you had outside of just learning Observable help you start using Observable? Like what other outside skills you feel help you use Observable?
I mean, I think the paradigm and structure is very familiar in journalism. Notebooks have been popular for a long time, RStudio and Jupyter and other things. So it felt very natural. And I think smart news developers have been teaching themselves JavaScript in recent years. I don't know. What did you think? Kind of jumping in, pretty cold, Paula.
I mean, I found it honestly relatively easy to use. I mean, I'm able to write some JavaScript, and so I was able to jump in pretty quickly. And it also, I think it's been super kind of fun and interesting to be able to set variables for things like color, and to let other people play with that. And so because I think one of the things that's difficult sometimes is if you're showing something to an editor, and they're like, oh, something's off, or I don't really know, but they can't, access your code to change the color or whatever it is. And so this way you can kind of say like, I don't really know about this color combination, or I don't really know, should this be like what kind of scale should this be, and let other people who can't really program to play with that. And so it's really great for collaboration in that way.
I can even just show this.
Yeah.
So can you all see that? So yeah, somebody can go in and just, I mean, I think this is a familiar pattern, but it's so powerful.
Yeah. Maybe change the active region.
Yeah.
Once further down, can't see it.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so.
Awesome. I think there was another question in chat I want to ask and then go to my final question. It's a question about should I ask this, but no, it's from Dipti. Said you, let me start. You say you committed to, well, thanks for answering the question first, but you say you committed to Observable early. What made you commit to Observable? What other options did you look at? What other kinks did you come across?
Well, so for me, I've used them all over the years. I have an active project right now using Google Collaborate. I have another active project right now using RStudio. So I think the web accessibility, the focus on visuals, ultimately, like I think of myself primarily as a visual journalist and not a data journalist. The data is the plumbing, but we got to tell people something interesting and compelling via screen. So I the low barrier to entry, and then just seeing like I said, Aaron Williams, Ben Welsh, seeing people that I really respect and I think are some of the smartest people in this industry, basically doing cool things with it was inspiring. I mean, in terms of kinks, we could get very deep with it, but by and large, I think I've been mostly limited by my own kind of mediocre JavaScript skills at times. I think there's been times when the reactive model wasn't clear to me, or there were answers. I mean, I'm seeing this even in chat right now. that there's a notebook about doing maps and observables reactivity, and just finding some of that stuff was harder than maybe I expected, but it's also a sign of a growing community, that stuff is emerging, and we hope to contribute to it too. We're really trying to kind of forge a path forward in terms of translations, and making stuff multilingual and observable. So at least for production kind of work like this. So we're trying to contribute to that ourselves.
No, good feedback. Thank you. Paula?
Yeah, I would echo what David said. I mean, again, like I was completely new to Observable, and I really found it pretty easy to pick up and to jump into. And I mean, as somebody, I would also probably consider myself somewhat new to JavaScript in general, and so it does also just help to kind of, I think as a learning tool, I think it's super powerful, and I feel like I've learned a lot just in the process of working through this right now. Yeah.
And I guess I'd add, like, some of the problems that we face, most of them in a lot of ways, are really sort of at the interface of Observable with some data set. And they're really problems of process. Problems might not even be the right word, but they're issues of sort of process and workflow. The code behind that Restore Illinois plan, there's some kind of complicated logic around where you are, but like it's just a table. but how we model in a spreadsheet, sort of deconstruct what the state's policy is, figure out what those columns need to be, right? Like figure out what those labels need to be. Now we need to figure out how are we going to fact check it? How are we going to edit it? How are we going to copy edit it? It's not like a normal top to bottom kind of traditional story. It's this different kind of thing. And I mean, even 10, 15 years into this whole kind of like internet journalism thing, I think that stuff's just really immature. Newsrooms are really immature about how they use the tools. The tools themselves aren't very mature. So, with something like that, I think where we see a lot of the friction is like, wow, it would be better if we had a better editing workflow, not a better notebook tool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's also, I mean, like, we were just talking about this of like, it starts out and it seems like, okay, this is like great, a spreadsheet's not that complicated. And then Chicago releases its own thing. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we need like 1,000 more columns, and it gets progressively more complicated, but it's like real time, and that's just how it is. And so you adapt to it, but yeah.
Right. You just end up with these endless kind of if-then statements that, to draw like a little, an asterisk at the end of a single line. So some of that's the nature of the beast, but the tools to do that can be fussy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to do one more question, but there's another question from the chat. I think it's great. Let's jump to it. It's from Adrian. How Paul and David was wondering if either you had any tips for someone aspiring to get into data journalism, and if you would recommend using Observable as a streamlined way to get graphics or other content onto personal website. I would say yes, use Observable for everything, but I'll let you answer the question.
You go ahead.
Yeah, as far as the first part, I think find something you're interested in and act like a reporter. I mean, there's no like reporter's guild, right? Like find a data set that you're interested in and start calling officials or learn how to do a Freedom of Information Act request. It could be something really, really small. It could be like, when was my building last inspected? Do I have lead pipes in my basement? Something like that. But there's plenty of other ways. It's just one path. I think Observable is great as a low friction way of getting into actually doing the data viz side.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, I think you can build a portfolio, like David said, with anything. You can start just putting together small visualizations and putting it together on your personal website and adding that to your application, and really that's the proof that you can do the work. So just go for it, which I know is sometimes an unsatisfying answer, but it's really the answer.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian, for the question. So my last question is, what are some of your favorite notebooks or users on Observable? I know David mentioned several names, but just curious, like, do you guys have your favorite notebooks or users on your platform?
I like all the beginner D3 notebooks because I'm new. No, seriously, I think they're super helpful. And like, I mean, I've like dabbled in D3 before, and it really clarifies a lot of what I was looking at before. So I find those super helpful.
My favorite notebook is a very short one by Ben Welsh that shows how to do a download button. I was like, oh, holy shit, that's easy. I put a download button into our widget, and we were cited by a major paper by an epidemiology group in Harvard saying, like why aren't other, and they literally say, like, why aren't other places doing this? Why aren't other places releasing the data like this? And it's because I saw a little code snippet that Ben Welsh wrote.
Nice. That's awesome. Cool. Well, David, Paula, I want to thank you both for being here for our Observable May community meetup, and appreciate the work you're doing. So I want to say thank you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep up the great work.
Thanks for having us. This was fun.
Thank you.
All right. So let me show my screen right quick. I want to say thanks to everyone for their questions. This is probably live. I have to sneeze 1 second. Okay. I think I'm muted. We good? So next, we're going to use the community chat. So, okay, great. Thanks, Cobus. So next, if you have any questions, feel free to use the question and answer section, and might invite you on screen. And we also have members from the Observer team that will that may invite them as well to answer your questions live. So I think Matthew's questions came later. One question, yes, is coming from, came in earlier, said that it's being recorded. Yes, this is earlier. So, didn't know what to do. So, all right, Tingle has a comment. We'll keep going along. All right. There's one question from Simone, and I'm going to invite Anjana on the screen. There you go.
Hello? Hello? Can y'all hear me?
Hey, Anjana.
Hi.
Hey.
How's it
What do
going?
you think of it's good. What do you think of David and Paula?
Oh my gosh, what a great session. It is so great. I mean, I just love seeing like these behind the scenes looks into, like what are the thought processes? What is the work that goes into these beautiful polished things that we usually just see the final finished product of. And I just love hearing about all the struggles and challenges and things like that. And it's just so inspiring to see this work that David and Paula are doing. So yeah, thank you so much again, David and Paula. It's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
well,
thank
one
you
question
so much.
that came in.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's like asking all these fantastic questions and really, participating here. It's awesome to have everybody in the call.
Yes. Agreed. One question that came up in the chat, and I thought you have a great answer. Or something we can talk about. Let me see if I can find it. Can we get a demo, sort of a private details of some observable notebooks to help run the company? Beloved see dog food and answering.
Yeah. So as Melody mentioned earlier, we really like run Observable on Observable. We are in notebooks. I mean, aren't we? We're in notebooks like all day, aren't we, Wayne?
Yes, totally,
Yeah.
totally.
And sometimes it's really, it's a really quick, easy way to jot down some ideas that you can share quickly with the rest of the team to get some feedback on. Since we're all in a team together, we can comment on each other's notebooks and edit each other's notebooks, even if they're not publicly shared. So that's awesome. And then we also have a ton of notebooks that we use to do things like dashboards, to understand analytics around our sites and analytics around various other things going on, like in the community even. And so those are the kind of things that, we would love to find a way to share more with the rest of our Observable family here. So hopefully in an upcoming meetup, not sure exactly when, because we already have some really great content planned for the next one or two. But at some point, we would really love to do a session. Maybe we can get Melody and Mike or some other people from the Observable team to kind of share a little bit more in detail about how we power Observable with Observable. It's like the ultimate dog food, the ultimate little snake eating its own tail Ouroboros thing.
Awesome. Agreed. Well, I'm gonna go to the next slide over here and just say to everyone again, thanks for joining us, and also feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Ajna has some great videos up there.
Yeah, we've been working on a new series to kind of, especially for folks who are just starting out with Observable or kind of trying to wrap their heads around the core ideas of reactivity and this, sort of automatic instant updates in this kind of non-linear way that Observable works. At least for me, I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, this was a big mental model shift that I needed to make when I started working in Observable. So we've been trying to make some videos to help clarify some of those core concepts and break them down in a way that hopefully makes it easier to get up and running. So if you, maybe have just been sort of on the reading side of notebooks, or you haven't found a good way to kind of latch on to the model of reactivity that Observable is based on, like definitely check out our videos and certainly get in touch if there's other things you'd like to see content on, whether in the meetups or on our YouTube channel. We're always happy to hear about it. So you can always chat to us here. You can comment on our videos on YouTube. Please be nice. And you can also always post in the forums. And that's talk.observablehq.com, I believe. Yeah. So please reach out with all of your feedback. We are really excited to hear it. And we're really excited to see so many of you here sharing your questions and your thoughts with us. I'm just so stoked.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Anjana. All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Wayne, for hosting.
Yep. So as Ajna was saying, we have a lot of things coming up, and just want to say save the dates for our June 9th office hours, and also June 24th, our next meetup. And as Ajna and Melanie was saying, we'd love to hear from you all in the community. We want to do more demos, want to do more activities, engage with you all, our community, our users, and just want to say thank you, and follow us on Observable HQ on Twitter for updates, and then sign up, of course, on observablehq.com. So I'm Wayne Sutton. I say thanks again for the chat, And I'll leave the chat open for a few more minutes in case you want to connect with one another. And see you all online.